This is Edge of the Box, a podcast brought to you by WhoScored.com.
Hello, welcome back to the Edge of the Box podcast, a podcast by WhoScored.com in association with Bet Victor. I'm your host, Dan Bardell, joined as ever by Jonathan Wilson and WhoScored's very own sharp haircut, Martin Laurence. How are we both, Jonathan? You okay?
Very well, thank you. How are you?
Yeah, good, thank you. Thank you very much, Jonathan.
You've recovered from the old COVID?
Oh, I tell you what, very tired. Thank you for asking. Very, very tired all the time. 7 o'clock at night, I'm done. Got nothing left in me at all.
I'm 45. I'm like that all the time.
Yeah, I mean, it's a nice insight into my future, to be perfectly honest. Martin, looking sharp.
Thank you. That's a very rare compliment. I knew you'd mention it, but I didn't think it would be in complimentary terms. I like the fact that you've come with your own subtitles today, by the way.
Oh, yeah.
And it's got your own name on there as well.
There's an unfortunate coincidence with the name. I didn't purchase this. It was purchased for me for Christmas, so it's not my own choice, but I'm wearing it and I like it and I'm happy. Hopefully you'll be sharp in the podcast as well. Let's get straight into it then. Tottenham v Arsenal. Is it the biggest game of the weekend? There's a lot of big games this weekend, Jonathan, but hard to call this one. When I was doing my predictions, I struggled with this one to call.
I guess you still have to say that City-Chelsea is the biggest game, but this sort of feels like the most intriguing and possibly the most consequential. I mean, I guess you could say Watford's game is also pretty consequential, but I think that battle for fourth is now possibly the most interesting thing we've got left this season. The fact you have Tottenham, Arsenal, Manchester United, maybe West Ham as well, all of whom are flawed, and all of whom, I mean, maybe West Ham wouldn't expect to be top four, but given how they started the season, I think they would definitely see that as a possibility. So, yeah, two teams who I'm still not quite sure how to take them. That Spurs have been very hit and miss. The league form's actually been pretty good under Conte, undefeated in 7. I think we've seen in the Cups how limited that squad is, which I guess from Conte's point of view is the ideal thing because it means that they're making progress, but he also can put pressure on the board to say, look, we need more. And Arsenal, who I'm still, they keep on going on these good runs, so everybody gets very excited, but they never really beat anybody on the runs. They just beat kind of teams you expect them to beat, which is a skill in itself. And then, they had the City game where they played really well, but I mean, I don't even think they got the rough end of refereeing decisions, but there's a couple of refereeing decisions they went against them.
I think it was a bit of an implosion.
And they sort of they did that classic Arsenal thing of not quite being tough enough to see through that, and didn't even get the draw in the end. They conceded a soft, scrappy goal late on. So, I still think the sort of the. While it's possible to see a pattern of play there, and while they are playing better, some of the old weaknesses still remain.
Yeah, this is, of course, the William Gallas derby this weekend. Martin, Harry Kane is back in the goals. Tottenham are the favourites with Bet Victor, I think, to get fourth again, probably because of Conte, let's be perfectly honest. Where's Kane sitting in the form rankings now with his recent purple patch?
He's up to 9th, so he's broken the top 10, which is obviously something he was nowhere near before that.
I mean, he must have been about 900th before then. That must be a big climb.
For what it's worth, since Conte's come in, he's getting closer to the goal, as much as it didn't seem that way in the games against Chelsea, certainly not the first leg. He's had 25 shots since the start of December. Only Salah's had more in that time. Before December, he'd also had 25 shots, but in twice as many games, and he ranked 28th alongside Josh King and Demarai Gray. So just picking up goal-scoring positions again. And looks like he cares a bit more, to be fair. Not sure he's still not 100% there with that, but yeah, he does look more interested. So yeah, he's 9th. Roman Saiss is 10th for what it's worth, obviously up at AFCON now. 8th is Lacazette, who's obviously playing in this game as well. Up to 7th, Jared Bowen. Jareth. I think, is that the name of David Bowie's character in Labyrinth? No. Great film, by the way, if you haven't watched that. Jared Bowen up to 7th, 2 goals in midweek. He's now had a direct hand in the most goals of any Englishman in the Premier League. Calls for him to get a call up for England mounting. Ward-Prowse is 6th, Saka 5th, another player in this game, obviously. Maddison 4th, Martinelli third. Son is second, but obviously a big miss for this game. And Raheem Sterling still top. So,
Son is second.
Well, before he picked up the injury, him and Kane were finally looking to be clicking again.
I think he's been a bit quiet, but that's just the eye test.
Not recently.
More than
Not recently. You should check WhoScored.com. It's a really good website.
Good website. We were talking about that before we came on.
Yeah, it's a good
rate it highly. Rate it highly. Jonathan, I don't know how much of Spurs you've seen under Conte, but what is it that he's changed?
Well, I mean, the very obvious difference is that his style of football is to press. So he's gone back to what Pochettino was doing, which they weren't doing under Mourinho or under Nuno. I think there's been a lot of frustration, I think, among Spurs backroom staff that under Pochettino, they were, if not the fittest squad in the Premier League, certainly among the 2 or 3 fittest squads. And because of the way Mourinho and Nuno play, that sort of advantage they got for themselves was squandered. And Conte's trying to get that back. There's obviously huge problems trying to do that in the middle of a season, that it can lead to players being overloaded and getting injured. But you see, I mean, it sounds almost facile, but just having an angry Italian man shouting at them does seem to have made a difference. There's much more focus there. Yeah, Martin made the point that Kane looks re-energized, and I think that is, I mean, partly I think it's probably an acceptance that he's not going to go to City, but it's also, Conte is a much more charismatic, much more engaging figure than Nuno. Nuno in his early years at Wolves did a great job in a very sort of quiet, restrained way. But when you've got a squad that's sinking, that probably isn't what you need. What you need is somebody to come in and rattle people, and Conte is very good at that. In fact, I think there's an argument that Conte is the best manager of less than great players in the world. That he can get a tune out of pretty average players in a way that I don't think Guardiola would be able to, for instance. I mean, you can maybe make the case for Klopp, but he hasn't been in the circumstances of having weaker players for quite a while. So, I think it's largely Conte's personality, but also the organisational work he does. And there is a structure and a dynamism there. And I think you can almost see some players beginning to remember what it was that made football fun and made them successful under Pochettino.
I think you've raised 2 good points there. The first one is that
Italian.
You often do, Jonathan. You often do. The first one is that Italian people shouting at you is scary, because my family's all Italian, and it can be scary when they shout at you. Second one, Harry Winks is a perfect example. Every time I've watched Spurs recently, Harry Winks looks full of beans. It just looks completely different to the Harry Winks that I've seen play for Tottenham before.
Yeah, I mean, he was obviously something Mourinho didn't fancy, and it looked like he was drifting. I think he probably is a player who, I guess you'd say Kane, but there are other issues there. But Winks is the one who's really looks back to Pochettino form. It hasn't worked for some players. I mean, Dele Alli, Liverpool game, he played okay, but I think the talk is that Spurs are trying to offload him in January. The Conte doesn't really fancy him, and Ndombele's hasn't worked at all at Spurs. For all we've seen little flashes and flickers of ability. I think Davinson Sanchez has suddenly looks a good player again under Conte. I think there's been a general uplift, but Winks and Sanchez probably the big 2.
Arsenal. Bit of a weird situation going on in the midfield at the moment. We'll gloss over the FA Cup knockout, which I did actually call on another podcast that I did. I fancied Forest to do a job on Arsenal. At a time when they've got no central midfielders, it seems, they've decided to let Maitland-Niles go, which I don't really understand. But they are short in midfield at the moment, aren't they?
Seems like an oversight because they knew this was coming. They knew Partey and El Nene were going to the African Cup of Nations. So you're then obviously hoping that the club don't have injuries, which they do. But that's a risk. So you're now relying on someone like Sambi Lokonga to be a senior presence in that midfield, which he just isn't. He's played well in moments, but to me, he still does look like a player who's not really ready for this level, not to Arsenal standards at least. You'd have thought a little bit of foresight, even if it was getting something lined up ready for the very start of January. I know they're linked with a couple of players. They're linked with Artur from Juventus. That hasn't worked out at all at Juventus or Barcelona, really. And Bruno Guimaraes, which would be a really, really interesting one from Lyon. He's a very, very good player, but that'll be that one will take time. I think the one with Artur is probably something that they can get sorted quite quickly, and they might need to with Partey and El Nene potentially. Although we're saying both players lost their opening game at AFCON, so Arsenal fans will be hoping that at least one of them crashes out in the group stages. AFCON's been a riot so far. Tunisia game was fun, but yeah, that's off topic. So yeah, I feel like they should have seen this coming, and I feel like that's possibly the decisive factor heading into this game. That's why I'd make Tottenham the favourites for this game. And when we were discussing who's going to make the top four, it's why I'd make them favourites again, just around this game as much as anything. Because if Tottenham do win, they go above Arsenal with 2 games in hand, and pretty decent games in hand. I know one of them's against Burnley. So yeah, I do feel like Tottenham are the value in that market, and they've come to life, and just Conte stopped them from looking a mess as much as anything, and they were a mess. They don't look great. I still don't think they look great, and the players aren't of the quality that Conte clearly wants and needs. But they suddenly look like a team that's better than the weaker opposition that they were playing, and they didn't before. They were only having about 10 shots per game under Nuno and conceding 14. So they were conceding considerably more than they were taking under Nuno, and that's literally flipped. So they're averaging 14 under Conte and only conceding 10. So to have fixed that in that short space of time, kept a fair amount of clean sheets as well. Yeah, I think his work's maybe gone a bit underrated, maybe with the results in other competitions clouding what he's done in the Premier League so far.
Jonathan, how would you see a combined 11 going?
Well, it's really hard because there's hardly any players. So
it's never a good start for a combined.
For what it's worth, we ignored, because of that fact, we did ignore.
You've got to pass it on. You've got to tell Jonathan the information.
I should have. Yeah.
So I started out with a 4-2-3-1 that was very Arsenal heavy, and then I took out all the injured players and realised you've got to play a back three. So this is, and even this, I've got Tomiyasu in who I know is a doubt. I've left Smith Rowe out because he's a doubt. But I think all these players are still available. Ramsdale in goal, although the choice of goalkeepers is difficult because I mean, Luis has had his moments, but I still think he's fundamentally a good keeper. Sanchez, White, and Davis is the back three.
Davis has been good under Conte as well. Because
there's literally nobody else. Tomiyasu, right wing back. Can he play wing back? I don't know. I haven't played. No, I think he's more right side of centre back.
If that was in a Who Scored 11, we'd be kicking off.
But who else can you play? I'm not playing Emerson Royale, who cannot cross the thing. I saw him.
Emerson Royale, I criticised him. I can't remember if he was on this podcast or another one. And Spurs fans came for me. I think he's awful.
I think he's been quite good recently, personally. Well, since Conte took charge,
I saw him at Watford, decent. And he was absolutely dreadful.
Yeah,
like he must have miscued 50 crosses in that game. And Conte said after me, he didn't name him, but he said, in games against opposition who play narrow, our delivery's got to be better. Well, there's only 2 players he's talking about there, and the one everybody thought he meant was Emerson Royale. So
must have some agents. Honestly, one of the best agents in the business.
Do you bring in Matt Doherty to play right wing back on the grounds that he used to be good about 5 years ago? I mean, and then Tierney left wing back. Is he fit? I don't know. I mean, he's a doubt as well.
He came on at the weekend against Forest.
Came on, but he didn't start. I mean, I suppose against Forest maybe he wouldn't
rotation.
Start. And then you got to, because Arsenal's midfield doesn't exist anymore. You got to have Højbjerg and Winks. There's nobody else. A Skip maybe, but. Højbjerg and Winks. And then Saka on the right, Odegaard on the left. Don't really like that. Prefer him central, but again, there isn't anybody else. And Kane up front. It's a terrible team. It's a terrible team. What can I do?
That's your worst 11, Jonathan.
I'm down to the bare bones.
He stuck to the usual rules, to be fair. Where
you could play a 2 up top, I guess. Lacazette and Kane.
Don't rate Lacazette.
Okay, you couldn't have done that.
I could have done it.
I like Lacazette.
I'd hate myself for it.
The illegal team.
The illegal team where nobody's actually available. We've got it in a 4-2-3-1. Ramsdale in goal. I'm going to start. This will go down superbly. Emerson Royale is the right back.
Good player.
Just his defensive stats are really, really strong. Like Jonathan says, I agree. His crossing's been woeful. But defensively, he gets stuck in. He's the right back. Ben White and Davinson Sanchez. I'm glad Jonathan mentioned Davinson Sanchez's upturn in form. Tottenham have actually kept 7 clean sheets in the 10 games that he started in the Premier League this season. They've only kept 1 in the 8 games that he's not started. And I still have question marks over him. I think still, if you put a ball over his head, he thinks he's back in Colombia. But in a back three that's sits a bit deeper, he looks good again, strong, quick. He's decent on the ball. Reguilon is the left back over Tierney in our side. Højbjerg and Partey in midfield. Obviously, Partey's not there.
Jeez.
Then we've got a three of Lucas Moura, Smith Rowe, and Martinelli behind Son up front.
So you said Son wasn't playing? What?
He isn't playing.
Where is he?
But
is he injured or
what?
Suspended? I don't know.
Yeah,
I don't know what's wrong with him.
He's injured, yeah. Sorry.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I mean, Jonathan's cobbled together a side there, but at least it's a regulation side.
Yeah,
There's
I
all
could have
sorts
picked
in that team.
I could have picked Moura and Martinelli, to be fair, but rather than trying to fit Odegaard in wide, I like Odegaard as a player.
I was thinking they might be able to. Should they drop him back and just try and control possession a little bit more?
I think that's what they might try and do, but they did try that against Man City and it didn't work at all.
That is Man City, though.
Yeah, I know, but with no Partey there alongside him, I would not fancy that at all. But it might be what they have to do because they don't have any options.
I mean, I feel all over the place. Where's Xhaka? What's going on? I've lost my mind. Where's Xhaka?
I can't remember if Xhaka's fit or not.
No,
I can't remember.
Xhaka's out.
Yeah, I thought.
I mean, he probably wouldn't have made either team anyway, even if he was fully fit, firing on all cylinders. But yeah, okay. Predictions, Jonathan?
1-1. I mean, I don't know. Just when you see so many players Arsenal have out, I'm starting to slightly rethink that. But Spurs have got players out as well, and I think Son is a big loss for them. So I think they become very reliant on Lucas Moura for creativity. So 1-1.
I've gone 1-1 as well. I think this game could be rubbish. It could really not be a good game, this one. So I've gone 1-1 as well. Who scored?
Differential 2-1. Come on, Spurs. Although we are obviously completely impartial, but come on, Spurs 2-1 Tottenham.
Well, when you predict a team to win, you want that team to win. There's nothing impartial about that, is there at all?
Just for the leaderboard, though. Not that I care who wins in general.
I mean, you've already shown you're not impartial by putting Emerson Royale in your turn to be perfect. I would say. Let's stay with this game and catch up with Sam Boswell from Bet Victor. Sam, live from the airport, our Bet Victor representative, going to give us some Bet Victor insight. We're going to talk about the North London derby first, Sam. How did Bet Victor see it?
Yeah, it's there's a lot of good games this weekend, but this is the one I think most people are getting excited about. 7-5 Spurs to get the win at home. Arsenal, they're going to be 15-8 to take the spoils back across London. 9-4 the draw, which I think will be a popular runner here. Interesting, I must say, I watched Spurs against Chelsea. Appreciate it's a bit of a changed team out. I've got my concerns. I don't think I'd be too keen on the home price. Match to end 1-1 draw has been boosted to 13-2. Lacazette 2 or more goals. If you think he's going to put on a show for Arsenal, has been enhanced to 19-1. Harry Kane, obviously a man who knows how to score goals, and especially in this fixture, to score first. Spurs to win 2-1. It's been enhanced to 35-1 from 28-1. But plenty of different markets on site around this game, and I think we should get a humdinger. If you're on the bet builders, let's be honest, this is a game you're going to be looking at goals and cards, I'd say, Dan.
Yeah, tough one to call this. This was the prediction that I struggled with the most this week, to call which way it's going to go. How are we looking for top 4 finishes for Tottenham and Arsenal? Who's the favourites out of the two? Yeah,
we've got it pretty tight, actually. We've got Spurs in there at 2-1. I think Conte coming in has given traders a little bit more thought that they're going to probably just get ahead of Arsenal, who are 9-4 for a top 4 finish. Just run through the others. Obviously, Chelsea and Liverpool incredibly short. We don't need to talk about them. But Man United, who've obviously been a big talking point in the last couple of weeks. Ralph Rangnick's men are 7-4 to finish in the top 4. And if you think West Ham are going to keep up this fantastic form under David Moyes, and they have been really impressive, and fair play for a small squad, they're absolutely flying. They're 9-2 to upset the apple cart and end up in there with the supposed big boys. And I'd quite like to see that, to be perfectly honest with you, Dan.
Going to be interesting to see which way it goes, because I do think it'll actually be one of those two that ends up finishing top 4. I wish you well wherever you're going. I've got no idea where it is you're going, but that window, I tell you what, Josh would love that window where you're sat.
I'm heading home just in time for what you would call the motorway derby, Dan, but it's actually the most important derby of the weekend. Come on, the Palace.
I mean, it's definitely not the most important game. We all know the Villa Park game is the most important one, but safe travel, Sam, and I'll speak to you next week.
See you later, guys. And as ever, encourage everyone to continue to gamble responsibly and enjoy some great action over the weekend.
Now on to the biggest game of the weekend, the revenge mission, Aston Villa against Manchester United. Jonathan, Aston Villa dominating the January transfer window. Just before we've come on, Luca Dean has rocked up at Bodymore Heath, the Villa training ground. He's now an Aston Villa player. Are you impressed with how Villa are operating?
Oh, yeah. I mean, if you're cosplaying being Everton about 2 years ago, I think this is a remarkable signing. I don't know. Luca Dean's one of those players who's, I think, better in theory than he is in practice. I wouldn't have signed him, but, it's not my decision, is it? I think you can get better. I think there's better left-backs out there who are younger and cheaper.
Who?
Well,
I'm
Aaron Hickey, yeah.
Yeah, but he's not bad, I think.
Lyndon Gooch is having a very good season playing at left back.
That tells me that you don't like Lyndon Gooch and you're trying to shift him.
No,
you're saying he's better than he is. You're doing a Martin Laurence.
He's had a really good season.
I had a genuine thought ahead of this around the Coutinho signing, and I know I'm skipping ahead of time. But obviously, a lot of Villa fans really excited about Coutinho, and I think that's fair. Obviously, he's not the player he was when he left Liverpool. But my main thought was, who was the last player that you were excited about, Jonathan, that Sunderland signed? I just don't know if you get excited like I do. I was a bit giddy yesterday watching Coutinho videos. Is it?
Oh yeah, it's nice to see on the socials. Good engagement.
Well, no, I was fascinated to see that when we signed Leon Diaku this season, 20-year-old from Union Berlin, and it's slow start, but he's looked really good recently, and I think his absence the last two games might explain our pitiful results against Wickham and Lincoln.
You must have been buzzing when Titus Bramble came. Honestly, you must have been loving life.
I mean,
well rated at Ipswich. Well rated.
Quite the word I'd have used. Sunderland has just got a habit of signing kind of players who. I mean, we were such a for a long time we were kind of just Manchester United cast-offs. Adnan Januzaj, crap. That what was that kid? Terry Cook, hopeless.
John O'Shea though.
John O'Shea and Wes Brown were okay. Wes Brown was always injured. John O'Shea was solid enough, but the great years had gone.
Yeah. John O'Shea signed Barbara's me, by the way.
So I think the last player I was genuinely excited by Sunderland signing was Kevin Phillips.
Right. Really?
Well, I had a mate who was a massive Watford fan who was just like, he kind of signed 30 goals a season. I was, really? Anyway, yeah, really, he's great. And it turned out he was right.
It's a long time ago to have not been excited. Never mind Sunderland.
That's kind of what I was expecting.
I think, was that 1998 when Sunderland signed Phillips?
Yeah,
97. 97. Wow, I was
going to say, never mind Sunderland till I die. Sunderland, wish I would die if you haven't been excited.
I just think excitement's a really dangerous emotion.
Yeah, that is true. Yeah, you can only set yourself. Only set yourself up for a fall.
I know Coutinho. I get why Villa fans are excited. I get why Everton fans are excited at signing James. They are clearly players who have been great, and if they can produce that is really exciting.
He's the same age as Salah. It's not like he's finished. There's a week.
But like there's actual age and there's footballing age. So right, where Coutinho's for various reasons has not produced for 4 or 5 years, and you thought, let's be honest, if he had produced in the last 4 or 5 years, he wouldn't be joining Villa.
Yeah, that's very true.
Now, I think that probably makes him overpriced. I think he's a big risk. I think getting him on loan is the right thing to do, because it means you can have a look at him for 6 months and maybe he's going to be brilliant. Maybe he fits in and everybody loves him and it's great. And I think to an extent, if you're a mid-table Premier League team and where you're realistically not going to get relegated, but getting into the Europa League is probably the limit of your ambitions, then it's great to have something to dream about. I just would have a certain amount of caution, and I'd worry what Emi Buendia thinks about this.
I think they'll both play together, them two, behind Watkins. I think, and
Springs and
Watkins will rotate. Yeah. I think Buendia's picked up a little bit in recent weeks. Because I'm a top journalist, I know the details of the deal. So Villa have got him on loan. Like you said, there's no obligation to buy him at all. 33 million if he does well is a decent price, I would say, and they're paying under half of his wages. I'd say it's pretty low risk for Villa, Martin.
Yeah, I think they've got as good a deal as I think they could get out of it.
Barcelona are obviously desperate as well, let's face it.
Yeah, I don't know if it's true, but I'd be slightly worried about the rumours that Tottenham also have secured an option to buy him.
That can't be true.
For the same fee. I don't even know if that's possible, but I assume it is. But that would worry me a little bit. On the subject,
I can say you can't do that on Football Manager. So
on the subject of where he'll play, I do agree that he can play alongside Buendia. I think the only issue is are they a little bit samey? Do they then miss that sort of point of difference in attack that someone like Leon Bailey, who's already at risk of being forgotten about, offers? Does that mean
bloody fit, Martin? You got.
I know, but does that mean that? I don't think it will happen, but might Villa be better suited to a different formation when everyone is fit? Might Coutinho play behind Watkins with Bailey on the left and Buendia on the right? But then you need that midfielder. Obviously, Villa linked to Basuma. So, yeah, it's a difficult one. But I think what you have with elite level clubs, and before I start, this is not saying Villa are an elite level club, but that's where they want to be, is that they don't really worry about signing players that will then mean leaving out other big name players.
Yeah,
it's not a concern, whereas it might be for clubs that have sort of lower ambitions. And you almost plan for injuries, especially in this day and age. You sort of think that at least one of those players is probably going to be injured at any given time. So yeah, I think the signing of Dino is another example of that. Matt Targett is a perfectly good left back. I think if you'd expect Dino to be the first choice, but in that case, Matt Targett, he's got to be one of the best sub left backs in the Premier League, and that's what Villa are looking to build. They're looking to build not just options in each position, but very, very strong options in each position, and that's, I think, the clearest intent that they mean business, really.
Yeah, let's move away from the Aston Villa Galacticos and look at Manchester United, Jonathan. Marcus Rashford. I feel a bit sorry for him because he's a shadow of his former self, really. But also, he's getting criticism. There's a lot of players playing beneath their ability at Manchester United. He's not just him.
Yeah, I mean, he's definitely a player. I mean, there's a problem. He's become one of those players who's difficult to discuss because there's clearly a constituency of people who were waiting for him to have a loss of form so they could attack him. At the same time, there's a lot of people who, because they're aware of that, will treat any criticism of him as being motivated by frustration at his off-pitch activities.
Yeah. Can't be a good person. Can't be having that, can we?
Yeah. Well, yeah. No, I don't think there's any reason to think that his charitable work is distracting him. I think it's perfectly possible to do both. There's definitely a time when he was doing that and was playing perfectly well. He's not playing well. It's fine to say that. But then a lot of players at United aren't playing well. And I guess it's difficult for him because he's not getting a regular game. His opportunities to prove himself, to play himself back into form are very limited because they've got so many forwards, because that squad's so unbalanced. Was he ever an A+ player? Probably not. He was probably always an A- player who you thought might develop. But I don't think he's, for instance, as natural a finisher as Greenwood. I don't think he's got the close technical ability of I'm trying to think of somebody in the United squad of Paul Pogba. So, but he had a combination of attributes and an ability to get in the right positions that meant he scored a lot of goals and was dangerous, and that seems to have left him. And I think the worry is you look at players like Anthony Martial, who's gone through a similar process at United of looking good and then slowly fading and odd little flashes of his talent, and suddenly now you just think, what's he doing? I don't understand the point of him. The
thing with Martial, and I think this is relevant to Rashford as well, is that they look miserable. That's one of the main things. Rashford looks miserable now. He was never a really sort of cheery, smiley bloke on the pitch, but it does look like something's up. And in the commentary, they said it looked like he's playing within himself and has been for a while. I think one of the reasons that players look like they're playing within themselves is often injury. And I feel like he was rushed back from injury by Solskjaer, who's done that with multiple players. He did it with Maguire and Varane. He didn't have a pre-season at all. The only action he had at the Euros was missing a penalty. So the confidence of that causes, or the loss of confidence, I should say. So I feel like he's been rushed back, and he looks like a player who's not committing to what he does. And sometimes you do that when you're worried. He might not even be injured, but he might be worried about an injury. Like he's had shoulders, ankle injuries, and I feel like he's looking like the commitment looks like it's not there. But sometimes that's not necessarily because you don't want it to be, but you feel like you're not 100% ready.
But that can also be confidence, right?
Yeah.
If you're overthinking things, rather than doing things instinctively. You're trying to go through the mechanics of how you do everything. And I guess when the system is being changed around you, that makes it even harder because it then can't be instinctive because you haven't learned a new way of playing. So,
I also think he's caught between positions almost. He's clearly in sort of an inside forward, but he's not a winger. He's not a good dribbler with the ball. He's good at he's got pace and he can knock the ball past players and run past players. But when he's actually dribbling with the ball, he's never been a good dribbler, and I think that's always been the case, but it's becoming exposed now because he's older. People expected him to have developed more than he has. There's the sort of loss of protection of being the sort of youngster, the academy graduate come good, and people expect more from him, and fair enough. I think that's completely right. But what I would say about how he's come back is he looks lightweight now. He was completely bullied against Villa. Absolutely bullied. Every challenge he lost, and that was never really the case previously. He never looked that way. So again, could be confidence, but I just feel like he's been rushed back as well. I feel like that's part of it personally.
They have got their new signing VAR though, who was excellent for them in the FA Cup, so he might be able to make a difference.
Hardly a new signing. He's been
been there a while. Yeah,
being a bet noir for Villa for several years.
Wish I'd not bought it up because I'm bubbling inside, really, really angry about it. I'm upset that shut up, Martin. I'm upset there's not a combined 11 as well. I was really interested to see a combined 11 of Villa Manchester United because Manchester United are just nowhere near the level.
Just Villa, isn't it? Just Villa. I didn't feel like it was worth it. It's just.
As we said earlier, as I said, the Villa Galacticos, Martin. Sure, we should have done it. Let's do our predictions then. I'll start. Why not? 2-1 to Villa because I can't go because I'm on a bloody stag do, and I haven't seen Villa beat Manchester United since 1995. Haven't missed a home game, so Villa are going to win.
I hope the stag's watching. You're buzzing about going on his stag do.
He doesn't really like football, so I probably won't even get to watch the game. No,
won't really like you after this either.
He won't watch this. Absolutely. Who scored?
We've gone 2-1 as well. 2-1 Villa.
Yeah. Come on, the Villa. Go on, Jonathan. Make it happen. A hat trick.
Yeah. Full house.
Have you?
Yeah.
Here we go. The Mark Bosnich derby. Full house for Villa. Happy birthday to Mark Bosnich as well. Someone Jonathan and myself have both worked with. It's his birthday.
Well, I think you might remember what year this was, but it was at Roker, I think, not Stadium of Light. So it must have been 95-ish. Villa beat Sunderland in the League Cup 4-1.
93.
93, as early as that.
Yeah.
Bosnich, I mean, Sunderland absolutely battered Villa that day. We got beat 4-1, but it's the best I've ever seen Sunderland play. And Bosnich was ludicrous.
Yeah, great goalkeeper. Unbelievable goalkeeper. My favourite
goalkeeper. I did some work on Australian radio with him a couple of weeks ago, and I mentioned it off air. And he was sort of purring about it. I think he regards that as being by far his greatest evening.
He's got a funny laugh. Was he doing his laugh? His laugh.
Yeah, he was. Yeah,
he's got a great laugh. Yeah, good time.
He was also calling me Willow, which is a bit odd.
Oh man,
there we go. That'll catch on. Come on, Willow.
Right, thanks for telling us that. Excellent stuff.
Bob Wilson was always nicknamed Willow.
It's not that bad, is it? There's worse nicknames.
No, I'm not objecting to it. It's just a bit weird. Like, I guess it's an Australian thing, isn't it? Just sticking the O on the end of the first syllable. But
yeah, it is.
He was just saying it like we were great mates, and like we've had a couple of Twitter exchanges,
like
done a bit of TV and podcast work. No,
well, I like
maybe I can just be the name that Villa people use for me.
Yeah,
it's better than the name most Villa people use for me now. To be fair,
he just calls me Dan, which is a little bit disappointing. Dano. He always puts a kiss at the end of text messages, which I quite like.
Look at you.
I think he does. I assume he does it to
text
everyone.
Messages. Wow.
WhatsApp. I assume he does it. I'm assuming he does it to everyone, but it's
WhatsApp,
isn't it? Yeah. Let's move on to Manchester City v Chelsea, the Sean Wright Phillips derby. Jonathan, everyone harps on about Manchester City. They need a striker, but obviously they don't because they're going to win the Premier League at cancer.
Who's harping on about that?
You always hear it. You hear it everywhere. Oh, imagine if they had a striker. They need a number 9. It's everywhere. But would he actually improve them? I mean, if Haaland's available in the summer, if they signed him,
He is
they
amazing.
I mean, look, the fact they
they
clearly wanted Kane, so yeah, there was a sense that they did want a forward. I just sort of think that the way they play, so I think if you play without a striker, your upper ceiling is incredibly high, but it's a very risky way of playing. And City are so good that we don't see that risk very often, but every now and again, very occasionally. So I think the game away against PSG will be the one that stands out. Maybe the game against Tottenham first day of the season, maybe that draw against Southampton. But I think particularly in Paris, City were the better side. I know they got beat 2-0. They were a better side. They won the XG that night quite comfortably. But to be honest, once they'd gone behind, it was very hard to see how they're going to get back in the game. And the reason for that was the way PSG played, with a back four, three sat just in front, then a big gap to the front three. City had loads of ball just inside the PSG half. They had loads of great crossing opportunities, but crossing the ball into a crowded box for Phil Foden or Raheem Sterling, it's not going to work. So if you had a centre forward, then in those circumstances, yeah, it gives them an extra option. But I think the point of them buying a centre forward would be almost as emergency cover, would be to give them a plan B. If for some reason the passing isn't as slick as it can be, if the opposition's sitting deep in a way where we're not able to break them down to get through them, then there is an option we can cross to. And that means the defence can't sit quite as deep because you don't want people heading the ball sort of 10, 12 yards from goal. They've got to push out slightly, then there's space in behind them. And then maybe a Mahrez or a Sterling or a Foden or whoever can break through. But it's almost like a safety net to have one. And if you're going to get a centre forward who is good enough for them to be worth signing, is he going to be happy in that role? I'd suggest probably not. So maybe you say, right, okay, he'll be on the bench for these big games and he can rack up 40 goals a season battering Burnley or whoever. I only say Burnley because City always beat them 5-0 at home. Was it 4-0 this season? Anyway, whatever. And Norwich. But again, is Haaland going to be happy doing that? Of course he's not. Would Kane be happy doing that? No. So I think signing a centre forward overcomplicates things. And I just think football's moved on. I just don't think centre forwards are essential anymore. For all the kind of, it's an easy thing to write about on the odd occasions when City's mechanics don't quite click.
Not for a journo like you, though, Willa. You don't get the easy work like that. Absolutely no chance. Mason Mount, Martin, always gets raved about. It's a bit Marmite in some cores. I think he's an excellent player. I'm asking this question. I think I know the answer. Would he start for Manchester City?
Quite a lot. Obviously, City rotate their squad loads, but I feel like he'd be among their sort of highest players for starts.
Where would he play?
In my opinion, just because, I feel like he's one of those players that can play in the midfield three or could play in the front three and looks maybe not equally comfortable at both, but as close to. Whereas players like Foden and Grealish, there's talk, they could play as an 8, but you'd worry about it a little bit.
I really think Grealish would smash it as an 8 for City. Honestly,
I don't
you? I do.
No.
I really do.
But yeah, and De Bruyne the other way around, great in a 3. And he can play in a front 3 and has led the line well in the past, but definitely better in the midfield. The one player that they have that does both brilliantly is Bernardo Silva, and I think that's the sort of, not the same type of player, but that's the sort of player Mount is, and that he's that adaptable, that he would become a very, very important player. And his sort of impact in the final third has increased really healthily this season. He's had a direct hand in 12 goals in only 14 league starts. And he's averaging more shots than Lukaku, Havertz, Werner. He's averaging 1.8 shots from inside the box per 90, which is up from 1.1 in each of the last 2 seasons. And we're starting to see that sort of Lampard-esque ability to break into the box and pick up positions, which he was always compared to, perhaps sort of unfairly early in his career. But yeah, that is sort of coming to the fore a bit now. Last season, 56% of his shots came from outside the box. This season, that's dropped to 36%. So just getting further up the pitch. and affecting the game in the final third. I could see you're smirking at Jonathan's yawn at my...
It was such a strange yawn. That was why I was like, he was trying not to do it, but he obviously was going to yawn. He
didn't want to hurt my feelings. It's just too late. It's too late.
I mean, I need to shout out the guy that clipped up the amount of times Josh looked out the window in the last podcast, because that was unbelievable. If you could clip up the amount of times Jonathan yawns when Martin's talking,
I just tired a lot.
Just look for the times when I'm speaking. I think
fantastic stuff. Yeah, that clip up of Josh looking out the window, I looked at it about 300 times, I reckon, over that weekend. I found it so funny.
Round of applause for that.
Brilliant. I can't even remember what you've just said now.
Mason Mount is good.
Was it a good point? Yeah, well done. Excellent. Yeah, completely agree with you, mate. Excellent. Cheers, point there. Very, very valid. If Chelsea win, Jonathan, would it keep the title race alive? Man City have had a bit of a problem against Chelsea, haven't they?
Yeah, I mean, they have. I've been telling last season it was 3 wins in a row for Chelsea. But then the game at Stamford Bridge early in the season, City were a much better team, only won it 1-0. But, it was much more comfortable than that. But yeah, the Champions League final league game and the FA Cup game, Chelsea deserved to win. So would it keep it alive? I mean, if they lose, it certainly ends it, because the gap with them will be up to 13 points. If Chelsea win, then I guess it's the gap's down to 7, and then maybe Liverpool can beat City as well, and the gap's down to 4. And then you'd say, well, yeah, okay, the title race is still open. But I think even with a draw, City, I think even if they lose, but a draw is a good result for City in terms of keeping the margin.
I know they got a clean sheet last night in the League Cup, but they can't seem to keep a clean sheet in the league at the moment, Chelsea. They keep giving away silly goals, which is costing them. How do you see this going, Jonathan? What's your prediction?
2-0 City.
2-0 City. I've gone for 3-1 to City. Martin, who scored?
2-1 to City.
2-1 to City. Full house there for Manchester City, just like the Aston Villa Galacticos. We go now to the just a minute section, and I'll tell you what, I had a brief look at this before we came on, and I was struggling for derbies. So I don't like picking players that are already there. Brighton v Palace is a banker. The Glen Murray derby. Off you go, Jonathan.
It's getting me stopwatch because I still take the rules seriously. I think the interesting thing about this game is the XG, that we sort of think of Brighton as being a team who underperform against XG, and certainly that was the case last season because of a lack of a striker. And I think maybe that's just changed the last 2 or 3 weeks, the fact that they've got 2 or 3 games, like they've got 7 points in the last 3 games, and that's sort of reset things. So Brighton actually aren't far off their XG. They're overperforming it by 1.09 points. Palace, 8.05 off. Their XG has them 6th in the table, which seems incredible. I think the problem is defensive rather than going forward. They have started. Alton Edwards started scoring again, which is good for them. Scored in his last 2 games. The Palace have lost 5 of the last 7. I think the absence of MacArthur is a problem there. He's still a doubt. Zaha Kiate, Ayew out. Brighton were Basuma, who's a big loss, but also Dunk. He was 1-1 at Selhurst Park, but I think Brighton probably just have enough. So I'm going to say 1-0 to them.
No, where am I? No, 1-0. Sorry, 1-0.
1-0. What have I done? I've done 2-1 away win to Crystal Palace.
Yeah, all different. Big game.
He just fits in with the predictions at the start of the season, doesn't it? When I said that Brighton were going to get relegated, which was one of the worst shouts that there's ever been. So in my predictions league, I think Brighton are probably bottom because I've just predicted them to lose every single game.
It's them or Arsenal, isn't it?
Yeah. Martin, you've got there, and this kind of works now because he's going to Newcastle. The Chris Wood derby, I believe he used to play for Leicester. I'm not 100% sure, but I think he played for Leicester.
He did.
One point.
Did.
Excellent. Yeah. Burnley, Leicester for you.
Chris Wood has gone to Newcastle for what it's worth. That's happened. Burnley approached the game with just 3 goals in the last 6 matches, and are now without Chris Wood following his move to Newcastle. To suggest Sean Dyche will be unhappy is an understatement. He'll be comfort eating worms again now that's gone through. He's without Ashley Barnes through injury, while Maxwell Cornet is at the African Cup of Nations. So we could see a front 2 of Jay Rodriguez and Aaron Lennon, with Vidra one of a handful of players that includes the club's only 2 left-backs and Dwight McNeil that have been out with COVID of late. Could fill the rest of the minute with a list of Leicester absentees, so I will. Evans, Vardy, Pereira, Fofana, Iheanacho, Ndidi, Amati, Mendy, Sumare, Thomas, Justin and Bertrand are out, while Castagna, Soyuncu, Dewsbury Hall and Daka are doubts, but may be forced to start. That's if the game goes ahead at all, of course. The Foxes' record at Turf Moor is poor, but their strength in depth is greater than that of Burnley, whose tough run of luck could well continue. Both teams have scored in the last 6 meetings. We're backing that to continue. 2-1 Leicester.
2-1 to Leicester. I've gone for 1-0 to Burnley, which I'm not sure why I've done that. What was I thinking, Jonathan?
2-1 to Leicester.
2-1 to Leicester.
Dan, I did see the prediction. Well, I've got your predictions ahead of it, and Dan, yours are different this week. So this could be a big week because Jonathan and WhoScored need to make up some ground for it.
No, I mean I've got no idea what's going on with the league table and when we last did predictions or anything. So
you stretched it again. You stretched the lead again. You got 2 correct scores again. Like, you're the correct score king. I've got to say it. Like I think
I've got Villa right a few times recently. Bang on.
Yeah,
I think. Yeah.
You got Liverpool, Chelsea 2-2 last time out.
Excellent. That's good to know. So I can afford to mess around a little bit with it and predict Burnley to win 1-0. That's fine. It doesn't really matter, does it? Because I'm ahead at the moment. I've got nothing for Newcastle Watford derby-wise. Absolutely.
George Riley.
Yeah.
Danny
Rose. Yes. Is he left Watford yet? He's supposed to be going.
Musa Sissoko.
There's some blatants. I don't like picking the ones that are still there. That's
I mean, you say that every time, and they're usually ones that.
So I don't like doing it. I never do it. Newcastle, Watford for you, Jonathan.
I mean, this is the start of a massive week for Watford. 3 big games. We've got Burnley and Norwich coming up as well. So I'm almost slightly surprised that Ranieri's still there for this. I wonder if they might make a change before then, because Watford have lost 7 in a row in all competitions. They'd previously never gone 6 defeats in a row under the Potsos. In fact, no club, I think, has gone 6 defeats in a row under the Potsos without changing manager. They're a little bit unlucky against Tottenham, defended pretty well. Second half showed a little bit of initiative on the break before conceding that late goal. The game was disrupted then. There was a medical emergency in the crowd, and yeah, it's obviously not the main issue, but it did seem to give Spurs renewed vigour. Loads of injuries both sides. Chris Wood at Newcastle, I guess, could make his debut. Watford without 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 players plus Emmanuel Dennis are out. So I think comfortable Newcastle win 2-0.
We've gone for 2-2.
2-2.
I'm not sure about that, but we have gone for 2-2. There we go.
I've gone for Bolfest 3-2 to Newcastle. If ever there was going to be a Premier League game with goals in it this weekend, it's that one, because neither team can defend to save their lives. So yeah, I'm going to go with that 3-2 to Newcastle. Martin, Norwich against Everton. Help me.
They definitely won.
I had someone swirling around.
Well, if you have a manager, Mike Walker,
nice. I need to Daniel Amokachi, but there's no way he played for Norwich. Absolutely no chance.
Everton.
If this shows at least that I don't plan ahead. I do this off the cuff normally. Maybe
I don't think you plan anything ahead, do you?
I could plan ahead next week. I'm struggling. I feel like
I reckon you'll get.
This is blatant.
I reckon you'll get one while I'm talking. I feel like there's loads.
I'll think of one. Yeah.
All right.
Go.
After a mini resurgence,
isn't there?
Oh, come on! Yeah.
Sorry.
Why aren't you having that?
Because he plays for Everton now, and I don't like it.
All right. Okay. After a mini resurgence in November, Norwich looked lifeless once more, and we're extremely fortunate to knock Charlton out of the FA Cup last weekend. To add injury to even more injury, they're now set to be without Scotland's finest Billy Gilmore, but have welcomed back compatriot Grant Hantley. There's been very little by way of transfer rumours for the Canaries, which suggests they may have accepted their fate. If Dean Smith's side can't exploit the slump at Everton, they've got no hope. Though the Toffees should have Dominic Calvert-Lewin back available. They look to have tied up the signing of Anwar El-Ghazi from Villa, but losing Dean in the opposite direction hasn't gone down well with Everton fans. Vitaly Mikolenko made a solid debut in extra time win at Hull, but has big boots to fill. Unless you're Jonathan and thinks Luca Dean is terrible. The last 5 matches between the sides have all ended in a 1-0 scoreline, and so too have Norwich's last 6 in the league following defeat to West Ham in midweek. They've been on the wrong end of all 6 scorelines, and we're backing that to become 7 with a 1-0 Everton win.
I've gone for 1-1. Jonathan?
2-0 to Everton.
2-0 to Everton. I've got nothing for players. Absolutely nothing. So it'll have to be the Ben Godfrey derby. There's nothing else it can be. And we're at Wolves Southampton for Jonathan now. And again, I've got absolutely nothing. So Jonathan, you have a go. You do your minute and I'll have a think.
This is poor, Dan.
I know it is. Rubbish fixtures this week for derbies.
Southampton are a funny side. I don't really understand what's going on with them. Every time you think they've got it together, they start losing games. Every time you think that they look like they might be in a bit of bother, they start winning games. Recent form's been great. 10 points in the last 4 games, starting to score goals, 4 against Brentford, 3 against West Ham, 2 against Palace. Even the other game in that run against Tottenham ended up being a great result because they held on with 10 men for so long. But Wolves also in very good form. None of the last 8 league games have more than a single goal in it. They defended very well. Whether they're able to do that with Roman Saiss off at the Cup of Nations, I don't know. They've definitely been hit more by absentees with Hwang out, Saiss, Bully, Johnny, Mosquera, Neto, whereas San Antonio out with Gineppo and Livramento. But Livramento's obviously been great this season. Even Wolves, last 8 games, 3 wins, 3 draws. Their 2 defeats were narrow defeats to Liverpool and City. They've been playing well. So I think they probably will still just have enough against improving Southampton. I'm going to say 1-0 Wolves.
We've gone from Cock being out everywhere now to Wang out instead, which really amused me. It didn't amuse Jonathan.
So what, sorry?
So Wang being out instead of Cock being out every week. Yeah. Author and journalist Jonathan Wilson is on this podcast every single week. What's your prediction, Martin?
It's a 14-year-olds.
Come on, Willow. We've gone for 1-1.
I can't even read anymore. I've gone for 2-0. I've gone for 2-0 to Southampton in one of my wild predictions.
Yeah, yours are wild. I did.
You know why? Because I do another podcast and I got given the power of making £100 charity bet.
Right.
And mine was Southampton to get relegated, and since then they've won every game. I've completely revitalised their season, Southampton.
Dan Bardell hates charity. There you go.
Honestly, yes, that £100. Sorry, apologies to the charity. You're not getting anything from my leg at all. Where are we? West Ham v Leeds. Martin, I haven't got anyone again. Oh, this is a shambles.
Come on. A repeat of last week's FA Cup clash. West Ham will be hoping for the same outcome, but Leeds will feel aggrieved by the nature of West Ham's crucial opener and may use that as motivation. Jared Bowen came within an inch of touching the ball, but was somehow deemed not to be interfering with play. He's then scored late on and has scored twice in midweek, having an excellent English season. Leeds are still beset by injuries. Junior Firpo suffering an apparent concussion in that clash last weekend, so he could miss out as a result. Bamford and Rodrigo are both thought to be nearing a return, but unlikely to feature, with Tyler Roberts and Joe Gelhardt both now sidelined. Marcelo Bielsa may field Dan James through the middle. Elsewhere, the only centre-back that's been fit to play for most of the season, Diego Llorente, is now suspended. Leeds can't catch a break and have lost each of their last 4 match meetings with West Ham since returning to the top flight. Their only win away from home this season came at Norwich, and after a slight wobble, the Hammers appear to be back on track, so we're going for 3-1 home win, West Ham.
I have gone for 3-1 to West Ham as well. And also, it's the Rob Green derby. If in doubt, think of Rob Green and he'll play for someone. So, yeah, the Rob Green derby. Jonathan, have you gone 3-1 as well?
2-1 West Ham, Rio Ferdinand.
Rio Ferdinand.
So obvious.
That's a disgrace, Daniel. Come on, get yourself together. Jonathan, you finished with Liverpool v Brentford. The Sergi Canos derby is all I have for this.
That's fair.
Fair. I think that's all right, isn't it?
Brentford are another one of those teams where I'm not quite sure what to make of them. They just seem to be slightly running out of road, and then they keep on pulling out results, as they did against Villa. Getting smashed off Southampton's not a great look. Their away form isn't good. They haven't won any of the last. So you've gone five in a row without a win away, and that win was that slightly freakish game at West Ham. Liverpool haven't won any of the last 3, but they have won the last 4 at home. And generally, apart from that Brighton draw, their home form has been excellent. Lots of absentees for both teams. Phillips, Thiago, Trent Alexander-Arnold, Origi, Elliott, Salah, Mane for Liverpool. I guess the big absence for Brentford is still Raya, because I'm not impressed by their goalkeeping at the moment. But another 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 players out. 3-3 it was earlier in the season. I'm going to say 2-0 to Liverpool this time.
Back of the same for me, 2-0 to Liverpool. Martin, who scored?
Let me just check. I believe 3-1 Liverpool. Yeah, 3-1.
3-1 to Liverpool. We'll finish then with our Saturday 3 p.m. treble in association with Bet Victor. Martin, what is your leg, or who scores leg?
We're going for just Leicester to win, straightforward bet. Leicester to win, over evens to win at Burnley. And despite their injury concerns, Burnley have only picked up 1 point from the last 4 in the league. The 3 defeats in that time have come against underperforming teams as well, in Newcastle, United and Leeds. Leicester have defied the odds against them recently, against them in terms of the injury department, at least, to win back-to-back games. Should have too much quality in attack, in my opinion. So, yeah, Leicester to win.
I wasn't sure we needed another just a minute section on that game, Martin. But
I try and give reasoning that it's beyond like, oh, I like goals. So, yeah.
so unfair. So unfair. You agreed with what I said about my pick before we came on the podcast. Yeah, I've gone for over 2.5 goals, Newcastle v Watford. As I said, neither team can defend. That's football knowledge. That's nothing to do with just I like goals.
Knowledge.
Neither team can defend. That's a fact. So we've all based it.
I agree.
Jonathan, you agree now? Jonathan,
Wolves to beat Southampton and under 2.5 goals in the game.
oh, and what does that all come out as, Martin?
So it was BetVictor were already an industry-leading price for that treble at 18-1, or just under 18-1. So they've boosted it, given it a nudge to 20-1. So far and away the best price you'll find for that treble this weekend.
I say it most weeks. That feels like a banker. Although I say that
a banker at 20-1.
I've predicted Leicester to lose to Burnley. That game. What happens if that game's not on? The treble goes in the bin. You've took a risk there.
Just gets voided for what it's worth. So there's no risk in that sense.
That's no fun.
I don't think it will get. So like Leicester's problems are all injury or AFCON related. They played in the cup, so I think they'll be fine. Well, they had to play in the cup. Burnley maybe, but I think they should have players back.
There he is again. Talking.
Guess who's talking?
We should probably go before Jonathan falls asleep. So thank you ever so much for tuning in. I've really enjoyed today. I've had a good laugh, and that is always the main concern when doing a podcast. If you're not already subscribed to this podcast with your post notifications on, if you could do that, please, on YouTube, that would really help us. Let's get these subscriber numbers up. Come on, we deserve so much more. We're putting on a show every week. Let's get the subscriber numbers up. And as ever, enjoy your weekend, enjoy all the football, and please stay safe.
Perfect.
I don't think I've ever laughed so much doing a podcast in my entire life.
It's just great banter.
Unbelievable banter.